ain't got the heart to kill them." The words carried a humanitarian honesty, a fleeting reflection of Poole's character despite his reputation for aggression. The German soldiers fleeing on foot posed no immediate threat, yet Richardson knew that Poole fully grasped the tactical reality. Leaving them alive risked future casualties when those same men regrouped and rearmed. Moments later, the staccato of Close's .30 caliber bow gun erupted across the battlefield. Poole's voice followed almost instantly. "Watch the bastards run. Give it to them. Close." The fleeting humanitarian impulse vanished. Tactical necessity prevailed. Even disorganized and fleeing, the enemy still represented a potential threat. Poole's mission was to destroy the enemy's capacity to resist. And he carried it out without hesitation, despite any personal feelings. The incident highlighted the moral complexity of combat. Good men were forced to do terrible things in the service of duty, in pursuit of a necessary mission. Poole's combination of tactical acumen, leadership, and fearless execution was on full display. From August 29th to 31st, 1944, Poole commanded the lead tank in the attack that would earn him the Distinguished Service Cross, America's second highest decoration for valor. The citation, approved by division headquarters and signed by senior commanders, detailed the extraordinary courage, skill, and leadership Poole demonstrated during the operation. Poole advanced alone ahead of his task force, pushing far beyond supporting tanks in his characteristic aggressive style. Enemy contact was expected, but the fluidity of the battlefield left both his location and enemy dispositions uncertain. Over the course of 3 relentless days, Poole and his crew engaged and destroyed 4 German tanks in separate encounters. The first, a Mark V, destroyed from ambush as it attempted to cross a road. The second, a Sturmgeschütz assault gun, eliminated at close range after a brief running fight through a village. The third and fourth, 2 Panthers, engaged simultaneously, both destroyed through superior shooting, flawless crew coordination, and Poole's instinctive tactical maneuvers. Beyond the armored vehicles, the crew neutralized 3 anti-tank guns set to ambush American armor. Approximately 50 unarmored vehicles, half-tracks, trucks, cars, and inflicted overwhelming casualties on enemy personnel. The Distinguished Service Cross citation recognized Poole's unflinching courage and inspired leadership under devastating fire, noting that his actions permitted the rapid advance of his task force with minimal casualties. His heroism, personal bravery, and zealous devotion to duty exemplified the highest military traditions, yet even the citation understated the peril of Poole's accomplishment. Advancing alone or with minimal support, he had deliberately placed himself in the most dangerous positions, drawing enemy fire to locate and destroy threats. Every anti-tank gun he destroyed had fired at least once at his Sherman before he eliminated it. Every German tank he engaged could have destroyed his vehicle instantly, yet through superior tactics, crew discipline, and sheer audacity, Poole survived and prevailed. Poole survived through a combination of skill, aggression, meticulous crew training, and extraordinary luck. The Distinguished Service Cross recognized his actions, though many who witnessed them believed he deserved the Medal of Honor. Over those 3 days in late August, Poole proved that aggressive tactics and superior crew performance could overcome numerical and technical disadvantages. The Sherman was inferior in armor and firepower to German medium and heavy tanks, yet Poole demonstrated that the tank with the better crew won the fight, not the one with the thicker armor or bigger gun. His example inspired other tank commanders throughout the division, encouraging them to fight boldly, take calculated risks, and close with the enemy rather than relying on standoff fire where German superiority ruled. By August 17, 1944, Combat Command A was clearing the remaining German forces from villages across France during the rapid exploitation following Falaise. The war had shifted into a pursuit, with German units retreating toward their borders, while American armor raced to intercept and destroy them before new defensive lines could be established. Poole's tank was leading the attack, spearheading the advance when disaster struck from an unexpected direction. Above, American P-38 Lightning fighter bombers streaked across the sky. The twin-engine central cockpit aircraft were hunting German armor, a familiar yet terrifying sight for friendly tanks below. Mistaken identity, miscommunication, or the fog of war could turn these powerful allies into deadly threats. The P-38s, usually allies, had become deadly enemies in an instant. From several thousand feet above, all tanks looked the same. The lead pilot misidentified Poole's column as German armor and called the attack. The aircraft dove, rockets armed and ready. While Poole realized there was no time to evade, he grabbed the radio handset, shouting frantically to identify his unit as American. But the P-38s were already committed. The first salvo of rockets struck. One slammed into the turret, igniting fires instantly. Another struck the engine compartment. Triggering secondary explosions across the Sherman pool reacted without hesitation. "Bail out," he ordered. The crew moved with perfectly drilled efficiency, scrambling through hatches as fire and smoke engulfed the tank. Seconds later, the Sherman erupted in a towering conflagration, ammunition cooking off in blinding, fiery bursts. All 5 men survived, though several suffered minor injuries from the explosions and their desperate escape. They ran to cover, hearts pounding, thankful for training and luck. In the chaos of combat, even the best crews faced danger from every direction, only from the enemy, but from the fog and friction of war itself, aggression, an unbroken will. The first 2 Shermans had been destroyed, one by German fire, the other by tragic friendly fire. But the crew remained intact, their cohesion and trust untouched by the losses. That was unusual. Tank crews rarely survived 2 vehicle losses in such short order. Yet Poole's leadership, crew skill, perhaps a measure of luck, kept them alive. By September 1944, the 3rd Armored Division was racing across northern France and into Belgium. The German army was in disorder, retreating toward the Siegfried Line. Poole and his crew spearheaded attacks, moving faster than infantry could keep pace, crushing pockets of resistance, and punishing any enemy bold enough to stand and fight. The rhythm of combat had shifted from the brutal hedgerow battles of Normandy, where every yard was earned with fire and steel, to a war of movement. Roads became the arteries of advance. Villages were seized at speed. German vehicles, retreating columns, and defensive positions were engaged and destroyed before they could consolidate. The first round from the Sherman's 76mm gun struck the Panther's side, hitting below the turret ring. The impact penetrated the armor, igniting ammunition inside. Flames and smoke erupted from the German tank as the crew attempted to bail out. But the internal explosion was instantaneous and catastrophic. The Panther burned, illuminating the village in an orange glow. Yet the danger was far from over. The explosion revealed other German positions, and enemy fire began to concentrate on Poole's tank. Machine guns, Panzerfausts, and anti-tank rounds erupted from windows, doorways, and hedgerows. Poole immediately ordered the Sherman to reverse slightly, giving better angles for King to engage secondary targets, while keeping the vehicle's armor oriented toward the most dangerous threats. Richards threaded the Sherman through the narrow streets with the precision that had made him legendary. Weaving past rubble and broken buildings under heavy fire, every second demanded instinct, coordination, and trust. Even with OL absent, the crew's experience and Poole's leadership allowed them to operate almost as smoothly as they had for months. Smoke and fire filled the air. The screams of battle close and terrifying, yet Poole's calm, aggressive decisiveness held the crew together, giving them a fighting chance in what could have easily become a catastrophic ambush. Poole's world narrowed to one urgent reality: escape or die. Smoke and fire filled the Sherman's interior, twisting heat and acrid fumes stinging his eyes and lungs. The metal around him groaned and twisted, warning that the tank could erupt at any second. Pain lanced through his leg, but adrenaline, training, and sheer willpower kept him moving. He grabbed the edge of the hatch with both hands, trying to lift himself, but the shattered bone refused to bear weight. The tank's internal fires licked closer, sparks and molten fragments bouncing off the interior. Poole, cursed, gritted his teeth and shifted his weight, using his left leg and upper body strength to haul himself upward. Seconds felt like hours. Every heartbeat was a countdown. Finally, with a desperate heave, he cleared the hatch and tumbled onto the street, landing awkwardly on his left side. Pain exploded in his right leg, but he rolled instinctively, avoiding debris and broken masonry. Behind him, the Sherman groaned once more before a series of violent secondary explosions ripped the vehicle apart, sending flames and shrapnel skyward. Richards, Close and Boggs had already scrambled to cover, eyes wide with shock and fear, watching as their tank, the third in the mood, was utterly destroyed before their eyes. Poole, barely conscious, dragged himself toward the others, blood soaking his uniform, vision blurred by pain and smoke. Despite the catastrophic injuries, despite the loss of their tank and the death of King, the crew survived the final mission physically intact, though their spirits and bodies would bear the scars forever. Poole's extraordinary luck and survival instincts had carried him and most of his crew through 3 months of the most brutal tank combat imaginable. Yet the cost of constant exposure to frontline danger was brutally apparent in this final battle. The war that had defined Poole's life for 3 months ended abruptly. Not with glory on the battlefield, but with the slow, grueling struggle of survival. Every step with a prosthetic reminded him of the ferocity of the battles he had survived, the friends he had lost, and the nearly miraculous string of luck that had carried him through 83 days of continuous combat during recovery. Poole reflected on the magnitude of what he and his crew had accomplished. They had survived 3 tank losses, destroyed 258 enemy vehicles, and killed over 1,000 German soldiers, numbers that few crews could match. Yet the toll was heavy. Paul Kenneth King was dead. His original gunner, Willis, all had been rotated home, and the psychological weight of witnessing constant death and destruction pressed heavily on all of them. Despite the trauma, Poole's story became a symbol of courage and tactical brilliance. He and his crew would be sent home for the War Bonds tour, their exploits celebrated across the United States. Public attention focused on their legendary record, the name and the mood becoming synonymous with American daring and skill in armored combat. Poole endured long months of rehabilitation, learning to walk, to balance, to regain strength, and to accept life with a prosthetic leg. Each victory reinforced the mythos of "in the mood." By now, the name was recognized across the division. Soldiers whispered of the crew that survived where others fell, of a tank that seemed indestructible, of a leader who took calculated risks and always led from the front, the advance through. Belgium would test them in new ways, faster operations, ambushes along roads, counterattacks from rearguard German units, but Poole and his crew had proven they could meet any challenge and emerge victorious. By mid-September 1944, Poole and his crew had become living legends within the 3rd Armored Division. Their battlefield record was unparalleled: 3 destroyed Shermans, 21 major engagements, over 250 enemy vehicles destroyed, more than 1,000 enemy soldiers killed, and roughly 250 captured. The nickname Wardaddy had spread far beyond the crew, becoming synonymous with aggressive, fearless leadership and tactical brilliance in armored warfare. Though his career as a tank commander had ended, Poole's legacy was firmly cemented. The lessons of aggressive tactics, crew cohesion, rapid decision-making, and courage under fire became part of armored warfare doctrine. The men who had fought alongside him, Richards, Close, and Boggs, carried the memory of their experiences for the rest of their lives. Inspired by the leadership of a man who had survived against overwhelming odds, yet had never lost the will to lead. By every measure, P's combat record was extraordinary. In just 83 days of continuous frontline action, he and his crew redefined what could be accomplished by a single Sherman tank and its crew. The destruction of 258 enemy vehicles, including 12 confirmed tanks over such a short period, was unprecedented for American armored units in World War II, coupled with over 1,000 enemy soldiers killed or wounded, 250 captured prisoners, and leadership in 21 major attacks. Poole's achievements illustrated the lethal combination of aggressive tactics, exceptional crew coordination, and individual courage. the human cost of this heroism was real. Surviving 3 tank losses under both enemy and friendly fire, enduring catastrophic injuries, and witnessing the death of a comrade. Paul Kenneth King underscored the extreme danger of the spearhead role. Yet Poole's leadership ensured the survival and effectiveness of his remaining crew. Even under the most harrowing conditions, the recognition he received reflected the magnitude of his contributions. The Distinguished Service Cross highlighted extraordinary heroism during the late August operations. The Legion of Merit honored his consistent excellence and strategic impact throughout the Normandy campaign. The Silver Star recognized specific acts of valor, while the Purple Heart bore witness to the physical sacrifices he endured. Belgium and France acknowledged his critical role in liberation, with the Belgian Führer Medal and years later, France awarding him the Legion of Honor, Chevalier grade. Twice nominated for the Medal of Honor, Poole's service became a benchmark for bravery and tactical brilliance. P's story exemplifies how individual initiative, crew cohesion, and bold leadership could overcome material disadvantages in war. His exploits inspired not only his contemporaries, but also future generations of tankers and military strategists, leaving a lasting legacy in American armored warfare. Exactly. Poole's accomplishments were even more remarkable when placed in the broader context of armored warfare during World War II. Despite the Sherman's technical inferiority to German Panthers and Tigers, Poole leveraged superior tactics, crew coordination, and aggression to achieve results that far exceeded what raw equipment statistics would suggest. To put it numerically, Sherman tanks U.S. Allied production, approximately 49,000 Panther tanks Germany, approximately 6,000 Tiger tanks Germany, 1,350 the Germans produced fewer tanks, but theirs were individually superior in armor and firepower. Yet Poole's crew destroyed 258 vehicles, including 12 confirmed tanks in just 83 days, a rate that would make any armored units' performance exceptional even against a numerically inferior but technically superior force, the Army's. Rejection of the Medal of Honor nomination reflects an institutional bias. At the time, heroism was often measured by the actions of individual infantrymen, not by the leadership and tactical skill of armored crews. Even when those crews decided life-or-death outcomes for both friend and foe, Poole's actions demonstrated clearly that in armored combat, a well-led, aggressive, and highly skilled crew could neutralize technical disadvantages and achieve disproportionate impact. Something that historians and veterans alike considered. Medal-of-honor-worthy. Exactly. Poole's decision to remain in the Army after such devastating wounds speaks volumes about his character and dedication. He wasn't motivated by glory or recognition. He had already proven himself in combat, beyond measure, but by a profound commitment to service and to the institution that had shaped him. Even with a prosthetic leg, he returned to duty, adapting to new roles and continuing to leverage his leadership and tactical insight. His experience demonstrated that the qualities that made him exceptional on the battlefield, courage, aggression, decisiveness, and the ability to inspire and train others, were not diminished by physical injury. The German Siegfried Line, or West Wall, loomed ahead, an extensive system of bunkers, tank obstacles, and minefields. While parts of the fortifications were poorly manned and hastily prepared, they remained a dangerous barrier. Poole's crew, leading the spearhead of advancing American armor, had played a crucial role in keeping the Germans off balance, exploiting gaps before the defenses could be fully organized. His actions not only inflicted enormous material and personnel losses on the enemy, but also demonstrated the decisive impact of aggressive, welled tank units in modern warfare, recognizing both the danger of continued frontline service and the propaganda value of such a storied crew. Division headquarters decided to rotate Poole and his men out of combat. They would return to the United States for a war bonds tour, sharing their experiences to inspire support for the war effort and raise funds. This decision reflected both their extraordinary achievements and the inevitable risk of continued exposure to frontline combat. Few crews had survived 3 tank losses while maintaining combat effectiveness. Poole and his crew were nearly unique in that respect. By choosing to re-enlist in 1948, Poole exemplified a rare combination of resilience and devotion. He transformed from the legendary Wardaddy of the 3rd Armored Division into a mentor and leader for subsequent generations of soldiers, proving that heroism in combat can translate into lifelong influence within the military. Yes, despite surviving the hell of combat, the final chapter of P's life contained personal tragedy. One of his sons, born after P returned from World War II, would later perish in combat while serving in the Vietnam War. The echo of a father's wartime experiences and the loss of a child to war was profoundly bitter. P had endured unimaginable danger, seen hundreds of men killed, and survived catastrophic injuries himself, yet the cruel hand of fate reached into his family. Even so, P remained a pillar for his remaining family and community. He continued to mentor, advise, and inspire both soldiers and civilians. His home near Fort Hood kept him close to the armor community, allowing him to share his legacy firsthand with young tankers, who would carry forward the lessons he had learned at Normandy and beyond his life story. From a farm boy in Texas to the most successful American tank commander in history, marked by courage, ingenuity, and resilience, stands as a testament to the human capacity to endure, to lead, and to inspire. Even in the face of repeated loss and tragedy, the loss of Captain Jerry Lynn Poole Sr. echoed the harsh realities of war that his father, Paul P. Poole, had long known. Serving in MAC-VSOG, one of the most clandestine and dangerous units of the Vietnam War, Jerry P. faced missions with extreme risk, operating deep behind enemy lines in Laos, Cambodia, and North Vietnam. The helicopter crash on March 24, 1970, which claimed the lives of him and 6 other soldiers, exemplified the peril inherent in such operations. For over 25 years, his remains were unaccounted for, leaving the family with uncertainty and the painful status of missing in action. The effort to recover him became part of the United States' decades-long commitment to accounting for missing servicemen from Southeast Asia, involving joint search operations by the U.S., Vietnam, and Cambodia. Eventually, through these painstaking efforts, his remains were located, allowing closure for the Poole family. The parallel between father and son is stark. Both served with extraordinary courage, faced near constant mortal danger, and suffered the ultimate price. Jerry in Vietnam, and P witnessing the loss of his son decades after surviving his own. Brushes with death in World War II, the story of the Pooles spans generations, illustrating both the heroism and the deep personal cost of military service. The Poole family story comes full circle with a legacy defined by courage, sacrifice, and service. After decades of uncertainty, the positive identification of Captain Jerry Lynn Poole Sr. in 2001 allowed a proper return and burial at Arlington National Cemetery, closing a painful chapter for the family. The delay between his death and recovery underscores the challenges of accounting for missing servicemen in conflicts like Vietnam, and the enduring impact such losses have on military families. For Paul P. Poole, the death of his son was a profound echo of the risks he had faced himself in World War II. He had survived 3 tank losses, brutal combat, and serious injury, only to witness his own child die in service decades later. Yet his legacy was already cemented through his unmatched combat record, leadership, and the soldiers he trained and inspired. The formal recognition of Poole's contributions extended beyond medals and honors. His burial with military honors in Texas, and later the dedication of the Tank Driver Training Simulator Hall at Fort Knox in 1993, ensured that future generations of tankers would learn his name, his tactics, and the standard of excellence he set. His story represents both the personal cost of war and the enduring influence one soldier can have on the military institution and the men who follow in his tracks. Exactly, Poole's legacy transcended his lifetime through both institutional recognition and popular culture. The SSG Lafayette G. Pool Room at Fort Knox ensured that every American tanker learned about Wardaddy's example, emphasizing the importance of crew cohesion, tactical aggressiveness, and leadership under fire. Lieutenant Colonel Brewster's dedication speech highlighted not just Poole's individual heroism, but the broader lessons his service imparted for armored warfare doctrine. Their departure marked the end of an incomparable combat record, but their legend would endure. They had proven that leadership, crew cohesion, tactical intuition, and sheer audacity could overcome numerical and technological disadvantages. Poole's story, from the muddy hedgerows of Normandy to the pursuit across France and Belgium, had already cemented his place in history as America's deadliest tank. Commander Poole knew instinctively that staying on the flank was safer on paper, but offered no guarantees. In tank combat, every position was dangerous. Mines, hidden Panzerfaust, teams, ambushes, and long-range guns could strike anywhere. Yet P's aggressive nature and his understanding of battlefield dynamics made him a natural threat seeker. He couldn't simply sit back while enemy forces remained in place. The approach to Münsterbusch is deceptively quiet in the early morning gloom. Smoke from burning German vehicles and scorched farmland from previous operations lingered in the low-lying mist. Poole positioned his Sherman in the Mood 3 along the right flank of the advancing battalion. His role was to support the main force, provide covering fire, and respond to enemy counterattacks. Richards kept the tank moving steadily, eyes peeled for irregularities in terrain. Close scanned fields and roads for infantry or half-tracks, while Ola and Boggs were ready for immediate engagement. P.I.'s tactical intuition remained sharp, even on this safe mission. He recognized subtle signs in the terrain: broken hedgerows, disturbed soil, and faint tracks that hinted at concealed German positions. He knew that even a supporting role could quickly become deadly, and that every second of hesitation could cost lives. While obeying the order to avoid spearheading, Poole kept in the Mood 3 in a position where his crew could observe, respond, and, if necessary, engage rapidly. It was a mission intended as a controlled low-risk operation, but Poole's instincts ensured that the crew remained vigilant and prepared. Every tank, every crew member, every engagement in the past 3 months had taught him that safe was relative, and combat could erupt without warning. Even on the last day before rotation home, King was competent. But he lacked the combat-honed instincts that Ola had developed over months of relentless action. P knew this and adapted accordingly. He gave instructions with precision, anticipating targets in advance and adjusting positioning to give King the best possible lines of fire. Richards and Close understood immediately, moving and scanning as though they were compensating for the temporary gap in experience. Boggs, the loader, remained a rock, handing shells with the same speed and efficiency that had defined the crew since. Normandy, as in the Mood 3, advanced along the right flank. German infantry opened fire with Panzerfausts and small arms from the partially destroyed buildings of Münsterbusch. The Sherman's 76mm gun roared repeatedly, sending rounds into doorways and windows, suppressing enemy positions. King handled the main gun well, but P had to issue split-second guidance to ensure shots struck quickly and accurately. Poole's voice was a constant presence. Left window. Fire HE now. Right flank half-track Sabah. Despite being a supporting element, the flank position was far from safe. Mines and concealed anti-tank weapons littered the village streets. Every hedge, every broken wall, every shadow could conceal a deadly threat. P's eyes scanned continuously, using the heightened situational awareness that had saved him and his crew countless times. He was alert to every sound: the crack of a rifle, the whistle of incoming mortar rounds, the distinctive echo of a Panzerfaust being readied. The crew moved as a single unit, each member trusting the others implicitly, guided by the sharp instincts of Wardaddy himself. Even with a new gunner in place, their efficiency remained extraordinary, proof that P's leadership had forged a team that could perform. Under fire, no matter who temporarily filled a role, the Panther's long 75mm KWK-4 two-gun cracked sharply, the recoil jolting the vehicle as the first round streaked toward in the Mood 3. Poole barely had time to shout commands. Driver, hard left. Gunner, return fire. The Sherman lurched sideways as Richards twisted the massive tank to avoid a direct hit, while King tried to line up the 76mm gun on the Panther's exposed side armor. Even with the new gunner, Poole's crew executed with near-perfect precision. Boggs slammed rounds into the breech, Ola's replacement King tracking the target under Poole's direction. Seconds felt like minutes. The Panther fired again, the shells striking the street just ahead of the Sherman, sending debris flying, rattling the hull. Poole's split-second decision-making was the difference between life and death. He closed the distance aggressively, forcing the engagement into the short range where the Sherman's advantage is speed. Maneuverability and crew coordination could negate the Panther's thicker frontal armor. Then, decades later, Fury brought that story to a global audience, translating Poole's experiences into a cinematic narrative while preserving the core truth that a well-trained, aggressive crew could overcome even technically superior enemy armor. The character of Wardaddy, modeled on Poole, captured his style leading from the front, trusting his crew implicitly, and demonstrating the brutal, chaotic reality of tank combat. Through these formal honors and popular portrayals, Poole's story continues to inspire both soldiers and civilians, illustrating the combination of courage, skill, and leadership that defined his career. It's a rare example of individual legacy shaping both military doctrine and public understanding of warfare. More about how he mastered the human and tactical elements of armored warfare. His success came from a combination of factors that any military strategist would recognize as critical, yet rarely executed so flawlessly in practice: crew cohesion and training. Poole's crew operated with near-perfect synchronization. Every member knew their role instinctively, allowing commands to be executed in seconds. This made a Sherman far more deadly than its specifications would suggest. Aggressive tactics. Poole understood that American tanks were at a disadvantage in armor and firepower compared to Panthers and Tigers at range. His solution was simple but audacious: close quickly, strike first, exploit weak points, and maintain momentum. Situational awareness. Poole's tendency to fight exposed riding in the turret. Observing the battlefield directly gave him superior visibility and the ability to anticipate threats before they struck. He effectively turned a vulnerability into a tactical advantage. Psychological mastery. By consistently leading from the front and surviving where others would fall, Poole instilled confidence in his men and fear in his enemies. His reputation alone influenced German behavior on the battlefield. Adaptability under fire. From hedgerows in Normandy to the pursuit across France and Belgium, Poole adapted to terrain, enemy tactics, and the limitations of his own equipment, always maintaining the initiative when measured statistically. Poole's 258 destroyed vehicles in 83 days is almost unfathomable. The numbers show he was operating at a level far above even elite tank crews, defying averages, odds, and conventional military expectations. His record demonstrates that in armored warfare, the skill and leadership of the crew, not just the tank, decide the outcome. Exactly. Lafayette Poole's legacy isn't just about the raw numbers of tanks destroyed or vehicles captured. It's about the philosophy of armored warfare he embodied and codified through action. Breaking it down, closing the gap, Poole's aggressive maneuvering forced engagements into ranges where German armor and firepower were less dominant. This principle, taking the fight to a range advantageous to your strengths, is still taught in armored warfare schools today: crew synchronization. The precision and instinctive coordination of his crew was almost superhuman. Every action was a well-rehearsed response, demonstrating that well-trained soldiers can make even inferior equipment lethal. This became a cornerstone of U.S. tank crew doctrine: psychological warfare through action. Poole's refusal to yield, to retreat, or to avoid danger created a kind of battlefield momentum. His aggressiveness forced the enemy into reactive positions, disrupting their planning and sapping morale. Risk leadership. By choosing to be in the thick of combat, exposing himself repeatedly, Poole set a cultural example that leadership is about shared danger, not safe oversight. This inspired subordinates and became a model for small unit leadership principles in the U.S. Army. Doctrine influence. The combination of tactics, training emphasis, and leadership style proved so effective that they influenced not only World War II armored doctrine, but shaped Cold War and modern U.S. armor tactics.
Superior coordination.
Combined arms, integration, and decisive leadership are prioritized over raw firepower alone. In short, Poole's impact was both tactical and cultural. He proved that victory in armored warfare is as much about human factors leadership, crew cohesion, initiative, as it is about technology. His methods became a blueprint for generations of American tankers, codifying the principle that skill and coordination often trump technical superiority. Exactly. Poole's leadership was a blend of personal care and combat, ruthlessness that forged both loyalty and effectiveness. The Wardaddy nickname wasn't just a catchy moniker. It encapsulated the duality of his command, protective mentorship. Poole ensured his crew was as prepared as possible through rigorous training, careful equipment, maintenance, and practical advice. His concern for their survival was genuine, yet grounded in realism about the dangers they faced. Leading from the front, he refused to remain behind the lines or delegate the riskiest tasks. Poole personally exposed himself to danger, setting the standard that his men followed without hesitation. Mutual trust. The crew's faith in him was absolute because he demonstrated consistency. He took the same risks he asked of them, maintained high standards, and never wasted lives. That trust created a psychological edge, allowing them to execute complex maneuvers under fire with near-instinctive coordination. Balanced aggression. Poole's tactical boldness was always calculated. His aggressive style didn't equal recklessness. It was the application of precise tactics, reading of terrain, and anticipation of enemy moves, aggression used intelligently, enduring influence. Crew members like Wilbert Richards carried Poole's lessons into civilian life and through reunions, keeping the ethos alive. The bond forged under fire became a lifelong template for leadership, teamwork, and courage. Poole's model demonstrates that exceptional combat performance is inseparable from exceptional leadership. Without his mentorship, tactical skill alone might not have produced the staggering results his crew achieved. The human element, trust, respect, and care for one another, was as decisive as firepower or armor. Exactly. Poole's combat service had a ripple effect far beyond his immediate crew, extending into the operational effectiveness of the 3rd Armored Division, the morale of American armored units, and the broader campaign in Europe. Tactical influence. Poole's aggressive approach and mastery of hedgerow fighting in Normandy helped shape American armored doctrine. By demonstrating how speed maneuver, coordinated crew action could overcome technically superior German armor, he provided a living model for tank commanders across the division. His methods reduced hesitation in other crews and encouraged boldness under fire, directly affecting combat outcomes in the breakout from Normandy and the pursuit across France and Belgium. Crew impact. The experiences of close bogs and all show how Poole's leadership created lifelong bonds and personal transformation. Even for survivors, combat left deep psychological scars, including survivors' guilt and trauma, but also imparted skills, resilience, and leadership qualities that they carried into civilian life or future military service. King's tragic death underscores the randomness of combat loss, highlighting the human costs behind operational statistics. Operational significance. Poole's destruction of 258 enemy vehicles, neutralization of anti-tank positions, and aggressive spearheading opened paths for infantry and other armored units, directly contributing to the rapid advance through France and into Germany. His actions degraded German defensive capacity, accelerated the collapse of enemy formations, and contributed materially to the success of operations like Cobra and the closing of the Falaise Gap. Strategic morale beyond the battlefield. Poole's record later publicized in war bonds tours, military training halls, and films served as a powerful example to the American public and military. It reinforced confidence in the U.S. Army's armored capabilities, inspired future tankers, and helped propagate the ethos of courage, initiative, and teamwork. In short, Poole's combat service combined tactical genius, leadership, and personal courage in a way that had both immediate battlefield impact and enduring influence on armored warfare doctrine and military culture. It illustrates how one highly skilled, aggressive, cohesive crew can have an outsized effect in a larger campaign. Exactly. Poole's influence extended well beyond the kills his crew personally achieved. By proving that aggressive maneuver, superior crew coordination, and rapid target engagement could overcome technically superior German tanks, he set a tactical standard that other American tankers could emulate. The effects were cumulative and amplified. Force multiplication. Every tank commander who adopted Poole's approach could achieve higher kill ratios and reduce casualties. Even small improvements in individual units, repeated across hundreds of Sherman crews in multiple divisions, multiplied battlefield effectiveness far beyond. Poole's personal record, operational tempo, Poole's willingness to spearhead attacks, take calculated risks, and rapidly exploit openings contributed to faster advances in Normandy, across France, and into Belgium and Germany. Other units saw the results of his methods and adopted similar tactics, increasing the speed and aggressiveness of American armored operations, morale, and psychological impact. The destruction of German vehicles and capture of prisoners by Poole's crew had immediate tactical effects, denying enemy resources, but also long-term psychological effects. German soldiers learned that American tankers could fight aggressively and decisively, while American crews gained confidence that German supertanks were not invincible. Poole's reputation encouraged audacity and initiative, which are force multipliers in combat. Doctrine development. Poole's success helped codify lessons for American armored doctrine. Training programs, tactical manuals, and future commanders were influenced by the principles he demonstrated. Lead from the front. Maintain crew discipline, exploit terrain for flanking, and fight aggressively to close ranges where Sherman advantages mattered. The 3rd Armored Division's record, including rapid breakthroughs, high enemy vehicle kill counts, and lower than expected casualties in certain engagements, reflected the tangible influence of Poole's methods applied at the division level. He became both a model and a catalyst for doctrinal change across the U.S. armored forces. Exactly. Lafayette Poole's combat record is a perfect microcosm of the broader factors that enabled American success in World War II, quantity with quality. While the Sherman was technically inferior to German armor, Poole demonstrated that skilled crews could compensate for weaker equipment. Multiply his example across tens of thousands of Sherman crews, and American armored units could maintain offensive momentum despite technical disadvantages, crew training, and cohesion. Poole's success relied on his crew functioning as a single, synchronized unit. The U.S. Army's emphasis on intensive crew training, gunnery drills, and combined arms coordination amplified the effectiveness of every Sherman, turning raw industrial output into lethal capability. Aggressive initiative. Poole embodied the culture of taking calculated risks and acting decisively. American doctrine increasingly rewarded commanders who could exploit opportunities quickly. Unlike German forces constrained by rigid hierarchies or depleted by attrition, Poole's aggressive tactics set a standard that reinforced the division's culture of offense, adaptation, and innovation. Poole's ability to develop intuitive hedgerow tactics, exploit weak points in enemy armor, and anticipate German positions reflects a larger American advantage, the capacity to learn and adapt rapidly on the battlefield. This adaptability, combined with overwhelming logistical support, allowed American forces to capitalize on German mistakes consistently. Psychological impact. Poole's reputation as Wardaddy had a force-multiplying effect. It boosted American morale, encouraged other tankers to fight boldly, and intimidated German units, illustrating that even elite German tanks were vulnerable when engaged aggressively and intelligently. In short, Poole was not only a remarkable individual but also an embodiment of the strategic, industrial, and doctrinal advantages that carried the U.S. Army from the beaches of Normandy to the heart of Germany. His story shows how individual skill, when leveraged within a system of superior training, logistics, and initiative, could turn equipment perceived as inferior into a decisive instrument of victory. Exactly, Poole's story highlights how these cultural and doctrinal differences translated directly into battlefield outcomes. Initiative versus rigidity. German tankers were trained to rely on technical superiority and structured coordination. They expected enemies to fight in predictable ways and engaged primarily from standoff distances. Poole, by contrast, seized the initiative. Acting independently to close distances, strike first, and force the Germans into reactive positions. Crew synergy versus individual skill. German doctrine emphasized the individual abilities of the tank commander and gunner. Poole recognized that synchronized crew performance, everyone executing their roles flawlessly together, could exceed the effect of individually superior opponents. His crew's cohesion, drilled through repeated combat, was a force multiplier. Aggression versus caution. German armored doctrine valued measured, calculated engagement. Poole's philosophy was the opposite. Take the fight to the enemy aggressively, exploiting surprise and speed to negate German advantages. His willingness to lead from the front, repeatedly accepting personal risk, exemplified American doctrine, emphasizing decisive action over cautious conservatism, practical results over technical ideal. Poole's tactics were rooted in realism. He understood that technical specs, the thickness of armor or caliber of a gun, did not dictate success. Proper positioning, timing, and exploitation of enemy mistakes mattered more. This mirrors a broader American military culture valuing effectiveness and adaptability over adherence to rigid theory. In essence, Poole's approach was a battlefield manifestation of American cultural values: independence, initiative, improvisation, and teamwork. German culture emphasized hierarchy, precision, and the mechanical advantages of technology. When these approaches clashed in Normandy and across France, Poole's methods proved devastatingly effective, showing that doctrine and culture could outweigh superior equipment in determining battlefield success. Exactly, Poole's combat record demolishes the notion that the Sherman was inherently ineffective. His story shows that the tank's performance was not determined solely by its armor or gun, but by the people operating it. A few key insights emerge. Crew training amplifies capability. The Sherman's perceived weaknesses: thinner armor. Weaker gun could be mitigated by a crew that worked in perfect synchronization, exploited terrain, and engaged at ranges where the Sherman's rate of fire and mobility gave it an edge. Aggressive tactics neutralized technical inferiority. Poole's philosophy of closing with the enemy, taking the initiative, and striking first exploited gaps in German doctrine. Panthers and Tigers, superior on paper, were less effective when forced into reactive positions at close range against coordinated American crews. Numbers and industrial capacity matter, even if a Sherman was outmatched individually. The U.S. could replace tanks and crews far faster than Germany, turning tactical effectiveness into strategic advantage. Poole exemplified how a single aggressive unit could multiply that advantage, inspiring others and shaping the division's ethos. Sherman as a force multiplier in skilled hands. Poole's 258 destroyed enemy vehicles in 83 days illustrates that the Sherman was far more than a death trap when wielded by a competent, aggressive crew. His record demonstrates that human factors, leadership, skill, discipline, audacity, were decisive in armored warfare. In short, Poole's career reframes the Sherman debate. It wasn't the tank alone that mattered, but the combination of American industrial power, tactical philosophy, and the extraordinary skill of crews like Poole's. Exactly. Poole's legacy is more than just statistics. It's a blueprint for understanding the enduring principles of combat effectiveness. A few key takeaways from his story reinforce why he remains relevant to modern militaries. Human factors trump hardware. Poole's record proves that even technically inferior vehicles can dominate when operated by highly skilled, well-trained, and cohesive crews. Leadership, morale, decision-making are force multipliers that no piece of equipment alone can provide. Aggression, controlled by tactics, wins battles. Poole's philosophy wasn't reckless bravery, it was aggressive action guided by terrain analysis, enemy behavior prediction, and close coordination. Modern combat, whether armored, air, or cyber, still rewards initiative applied intelligently. Training as a strategic asset, Poole's crew drilled relentlessly, developing instincts that allowed instantaneous decision-making under fire. Today, simulation and realistic training like the Fort Knox SSG, Lafayette Green Pool, are direct descendants of this principle, legacy beyond technology. The lessons from Poole's experience are timeless. Leadership, crew cohesion, situational awareness, and tactical aggression will always amplify combat power. Regardless of the sophistication of the platforms involved, institutional memory matters by enshrining Poole's story in training halls and educational programs. The Army ensures that generations of tankers internalize these lessons, preserving the human element that is often overshadowed by the latest technological upgrades. Poole's story is a reminder that machines fight only as well as the people who operate them, and that true military excellence comes from the synergy of leadership, training, and courage. Exactly. Poole's story illustrates that even the most skilled, courageous, and aggressive soldiers are never immune to the arbitrary and chaotic nature of combat. Survival is never guaranteed skill. Training and experience maximize the odds, but luck and circumstance always play a decisive role. Paul Kenneth King's death highlights this vividly. He was competent and experienced, yet his placement in Poole's tank at that precise moment made him the casualty instead of someone else. In combat, the difference between life and death can hinge on chance, who happens to be in the right or wrong position at the right or wrong moment. This randomness doesn't diminish Poole's skill or leadership underscores the stakes of war. It also amplifies why his achievements over 83 days were so extraordinary, surviving 3 tank losses, leading attacks that destroyed hundreds of enemy vehicles, and repeatedly winning engagements that, on paper, should have favored the Germans. The human cost was real. Poole's story reminds us that heroism in war exists alongside immense risk and unpredictable tragedy. Exactly. Poole's experience underscores profound duality in war. Tactical brilliance and personal cost often exist side by side, each amplifying the other. On one hand, his aggressive philosophy first, close with the enemy, leveraged superior crew training produced extraordinary results. 258 enemy vehicles destroyed, over 1,000 enemy soldiers killed or wounded, and an enduring influence on American armored doctrine. On the other hand, the very same philosophy exposed him and his crew to immense danger, ultimately costing him his leg and the life of Paul Kenneth King. The ironies are stark. Surviving the most dangerous attacks only to be wounded on what was supposed to be a safe mission illustrates that in combat, control is always partial, and survival is never guaranteed. Administrative decisions, chance encounters, split-second tactical choices all intersect, unpredictably, sometimes in life-saving ways, sometimes tragically. Poole's decision to continue serving after his amputation reflects a mindset beyond mere survival: purpose, identity, and meaning in service. The lessons of his story are both practical and philosophical. Skill, training, and courage can produce outsized effects on the battlefield, yet they coexist with the randomness and cost of war. His legacy endures not just in statistics and awards, but in the doctrine, leadership principles, and mindset he imparted 2 generations of soldiers. Exactly Poole's life mirrors the arc of 20th century American military history. From the pre-World War II Army, small and lightly equipped, to the Cold War, a global force, he was both witness and participant in the transformation. His personal evolution from farm boy to tank commander to living legend reflects the opportunities and demands war imposed on ordinary Americans, his experiences in combat, and the fame and influence he gained meant that ordinary civilian life would likely have felt constraining or unsatisfying. He had operated at the extreme limits of human skill, courage, and decision-making, shaping outcomes that extended far beyond his immediate unit. In that sense, his identity was inseparable from the Army. The Army shaped him, and he shaped the Army, through tactics, leadership, and mentorship of subsequent generations. By the time of his death in 1991, the world he had fought to protect was on the cusp of monumental change with the end of the Cold War. Pool's generation, the men who faced fascism, endured immense danger and helped remake the post-war world, was beginning to fade, leaving a legacy of courage, innovation, and sacrifice that would define American military history for decades. His story is not only about personal heroism and combat, but about the intertwining of individual action with the sweep of global history, a living illustration of how one person's choices can resonate far beyond the battlefield. Exactly, Lafayette. Pool's story is a testament not just to military skill, but to the broader American ideals of self-reliance, courage, and merit-based achievement. He embodies the principle that excellence arises from preparation, character, and decisive action rather than inherited status or technological advantage. Through his combat record, Pool demonstrated that superior leadership, aggressive initiative, and disciplined teamwork could overcome even the most formidable technical obstacles. His example shaped generations of American tankers, influenced armored doctrine, and became a benchmark for what determined, well-trained individuals can accomplish under extreme conditions beyond the battlefield. Pool's life illustrates a universal lesson. Ordinary people, when given opportunity, training, and purpose, can achieve extraordinary feats. His story bridges personal heroism with national values, showing that the combination of courage, skill, and moral clarity can have consequences far beyond the immediate moment, impacting not only military outcomes, but also inspiring society to recognize the power of human determination. Beautifully written. This passage captures not only Pool's extraordinary combat record, but also the human and cultural dimensions of his story, his transformation, leadership, and the bonds of his crew. Alongside the larger American narrative of ordinary citizens rising to extraordinary challenges, it emphasizes that his legacy is as much about character, training, and courage as it is about tanks or statistics. The final lines tie his personal story to the broader national story, showing how individual heroism reflects and shapes the ideals of a society. Lafayette.
Us.
Pool's 258 destroyed enemy vehicles, 12 confirmed tank kills, over 1,000 enemy soldiers killed, and 250 prisoners captured tell only part of his story. The full story includes his refusal to accept a commission so he could fight from a tank, his devotion to his crew, and their absolute trust in his leadership, his survival through 3 tank losses, and his determination to continue fighting after each one. It includes his decision to re-enlist despite his disability and serve another 12 years. His influence on generations of American tankers who studied his tactics, and the loss of his son in Vietnam, linking his World War II service to the next generation's conflict. It is about a man who discovered his gifts for tactical thinking and aggressive action in the chaos of combat, who paid the price of those gifts in pain, blood, and the deaths of men who fought beside him. It is about a life defined by service, sacrifice, and leadership, a legacy that extends far beyond his own life, shaping military doctrine, inspiring soldiers, and demonstrating that ordinary Americans can achieve the extraordinary when tested by the ultimate challenge of combat. Lafayette Green Pool, Staff Sergeant, United States Army, Chief Warrant Officer Two, holder of the Distinguished Service Cross, Legion of Merit, Silver Star, Purple Heart, Belgian Ferrer, and French Legion of Honor, destroyer of 258 enemy vehicles in 83 days of combat, America's deadliest tank commander, Wardaddy to his crew, and a legend to the Army he served. He died on May 30th, 1991, in Keene, Texas. At the age of 71, he left behind his wife Evelyn, 8 children, and a military legacy that will endure as long as armies study the art of armored warfare. From a farm in South Texas, to the battlefields of France, to the Memorial Hall at Fort Knox, His story represents the best of American military tradition: courage in combat, devotion to duty, leadership by example, and sacrifice for country. Wardaddy's war may have ended on September 19, 1944, but his legacy endures.